As an investor, you probably have only one thing in mind, and that is to increase shareholder value of your investment. You want to make money from your investment. Very simple, right? Um, and pricing is actually the easiest and quickest way to do that. Hey, I'm Per Sjofors. I'm known as the Price Whisperer, and I'm going to talk about why pricing is so important topic for investors, and in particularly, obviously, if they can influence their their portfolio companies. So pricing. Most companies, most CEOs don't believe that pricing matters. This is a fact. In fact, in studies that my company has done, we found that 88% of CEOs in general do not think that pricing is particularly important. That's amazing, right? Because if you really think about it, of any company has a resulting profit that only comes from three variables. It's the total cost of the operation, it is the total sales volume, and it's the price of whatever you have to sell. And for the average company, pricing has the highest leverage. For that average company, and I'm using a thought, thought experiment here, assuming that you can change these three variables by only 1%. For the average company, if you can increase sales volume with 1%, profitability goes up with 3.5%. If you, on the other hand, can reduce cost with 1%, profitability goes up with 5.5%. But if you can increase your price with 1%, or if you can reduce your discounting with 1%, profitability goes up with 11.3%. Why is this then important? Well, it is important because profits is what drives every company. If you're an investor in a company, if the company isn't profitable, eventually you will run out of patience. You are not willing to support the company anymore. And the only way the company then can be a sustaining business is to become profitable. It's very simple math, isn't it? Right? And it's also very logical. We also know that companies spend lots of resource on keeping cost under control, lots of resources in sales and marketing to sell as much as they can. But pricing is often forgotten. They may look at a competitor and try to price the same way, or they use cost plus, or I've on many occasions, well, at least several occasions, heard CEOs saying similar things to, I think that my gut feel is simply better than your science. Or they use something they call market price, which is another euphemism for guessing. But if pricing has the highest leverage on profitability, why is that important? Well, it is important because profits enables the company to spend more resource on product development, on service definitions, on training their salespeople, on increasing their marketing spend, etc., etc. Not all profits are going to end up in the pockets of the management in a company. They are going to spend the very bulk of it to drive the company forward. And as an investor, if you can increase the growth of a company, and you can do that at the same time as profitability increases, shareholder value skyrockets, right? In fact, if you price right, it's proven that sales development or sales growth are more than doubled, right? Together with often a 25 to 40% increase in margins. And that by itself, because this happened very quickly, this happens in a couple of months. In some cases, only a week, right? Because pricing is often something you can change very quickly. Not always, but often you can. Especially if the company is underpriced, that many companies are. But so you see a very quick improvement in a company performance, and that leads to a very quick increase in shareholder value. I mean, compare that with companies who spend millions and millions on process improvements, on new ERP systems, on new CRM systems, and training people, and do all different things. And if they instead looked at pricing, maybe they have better results in only a few weeks or maybe a few months, right? And again, as an investor, this is what you want. You, especially if you're an investor that has the ability to influence the companies that you invested in. So I'm not really talking about somebody who invests, personal investment in even stocks or funds or mutual funds or something like that. I'm talking about venture capitalists. I'm talking about private equity groups, and I'm talking about family offices. Organizations that really have a lot of skin in the game. These are organizations that has ownership of a large chunk of a company, sometimes even the majority of the company, sometimes everything in the company, all the shares. And again, looking at pricing from a shareholder value perspective changes everything, because it is a lever that few companies do. And in fact, the companies who are focused on pricing typically ends up as the market leaders, or at least they aspire to become the market leaders and become the market leaders very quickly. And pricing helps all that. Not directly, but indirectly, because when you price right, and so few companies does, it provides all that resource to grow the company quicker and become more competitive, and it drives the company forward in ways that cost control or sales volume increases cannot do, unbeknownst to most CEOs. But I know from my own experience that investors, and the kind of investors I'm talking about here, venture capitalists and particularly private equity groups and family offices, they only have one goal. They want to grow the company, and they want to sell their holdings in one way or another. And they want to maximize their return on investment. And for the portfolio company, pricing is the best way of doing it. It almost always leads to very substantial increases in growth, in profits, in market share, and of course shareholder value. Fixing prices often increases shareholder value with 3 to 5 times, and it has this lever because it's done very quickly, and it affects not only the company's bottom line, but also the growth of the company. So that's why pricing is so important in this particular circumstance that we're talking about here. All right. Well, I hope this was of interest for you if you listened to the whole thing, the whole little video, and think about pricing. Think about how it's going to change your life as an investor in a company, because it always does. I can really, really guarantee that. All right, thanks for your time, and look for my other videos here, and I hope you find nuggets of information that is of interest. And if this is of interest for you, please share it with your colleagues. I'm sure they will be happy to learn a little bit of why pricing is so important. Thank you very much, and I'll see you the next time.